Is the 2024 Asus ROG Zephyrus G14 the best laptop that I've ever owned? I think it might be. So the release of the 2025 version of this computer is just around the corner, which probably means you're going to be able to get some pretty sweet deals on this guy. And let's be honest, this is still going to be an absolute beast and perform just as well as you probably want it to in the year 2025 and for many years to come. Plus, if you're like me, you kind of want to wait on the sidelines a little bit and then purchase something after it's been out for a while, because that way you can kind of see how it holds up over time. So I've owned this laptop now for about 6 months, and I've used it daily alongside my M3 MacBook Pro. Used it for work, I've used it for some light gaming. It's been awesome. As you know from the title, G14, this is the 14-inch version of this computer. You can get a 16-inch version, but I wanted to go with the 14-inch. This has the RTX 4070 and 32 gigabytes of RAM. So how well has this held up over the last 6 months? Well, let me bore you with a little bit of backstory first. So I do a lot of video production and motion graphics animation work. That's what I do full-time for a living, and I've done that for the last 13 years. And I've primarily done all of my work on Apple computers, primarily MacBooks. And MacBooks have gotten really, really good, especially with the release of Apple Silicon about 5 years ago. So there's one area where Apple computers suck, and that's in gaming. And I like to do a little bit of light gaming on the side, but beyond that, when it comes to work-related stuff, anytime I'm doing any 3D modeling or 3D rendering, those things really struggle on Apple computers, though they have gotten a lot better in recent years. I just have to have a Windows computer on the side. Overall, I've been incredibly impressed by this device, and though 6 months is not a really long time per se, I have confidence that this thing is going to continue to hold up for years to come. The construction of it is solid. I mean, it's just as every bit as solid as a MacBook would be. I was worried about my greasy paws mucking up these really beautiful white keys over the last 6 months, but actually there's nothing on those, no smudges or anything, and I've like cleaned it once maybe. So I'm actually really impressed that it hasn't just become like a grease magnet. The hinge on this thing, super stiff and feels great still. I don't worry about this thing ever coming loose or whatever. Overall, the build quality is just insane on this. And maybe I'm kind of overstating that because it's been a while since I've had a Windows laptop. And you know, in the past, I've gotten some Windows laptops that kind of have not so great quality. So let's dive into the performance of this device. How has it worked for me in a real world scenario? Now, I just want to make one thing clear. I am not a benchmark guy. So if you came expecting me to run benchmarks or run some kind of tests and that kind of thing, I'm not that guy. I just want to kind of communicate to you how my real world experience using this device has been. And it's just impossible to test every single scenario. You just have to use it, right? So for me, I've got nothing against benchmarking by any means. I'm just not the benchmark guy. So like I said, I use Adobe After Effects a lot, pretty much daily to do motion graphics animation work. And if any of you out there have used Adobe After Effects, you know just how quirky and dare I say terrible After Effects is. It should run a lot better than it does. I'll just say that. But I'll tell you right out of the gate, this is hands down the best device I've ever used all around for After Effects. So it's not necessarily the best in every area, but all around, just holistically, this is the best computer that I have ever used when it comes to Adobe After Effects. Preview performance in After Effects, which is the most important thing to me personally, it's fantastic, it's really good. That doesn't mean that it doesn't get bottlenecked. I don't think there's a computer on earth that won't get bottlenecked by After Effects' previewing system. But rendering is great, it's relatively fast. Again, rendering I don't care as much about because I can just set it and forget it and go do something else while it's rendering out. All around it runs fantastic with After Effects. And kind of a funny story, the reason that I actually bought this laptop was specifically for this one project that I was working on. And I was using my M3 MacBook Pro, and I just was not able to get this plugin that I was using to work. It just kept glitching out, it kept crashing. I couldn't even see the preview of what it was I was animating. And I literally was sitting there like, I don't know what to do other than to go buy a new computer. And I guess I'm gonna have to go buy a Windows computer because I feel like there's something weird going on with the Apple Silicon thing. And I don't know what was going on there, quite frankly, but I did my research, found this guy, went and picked it up, and sure enough, works flawlessly. It's still slow, right? It's still bottlenecked by After Effects. Like I said, I don't think there's a computer on earth that won't get bottlenecked by After Effects. but it did the job, and I was able to finish that job and get it over the finish line, and I was super impressed. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying to yourself right now, there is absolutely no way that you can't configure a desktop PC to just blow this thing out of the water when it comes to After Effects or anything else, right? And you're absolutely correct. But the reason that I choose laptops is because I need the portability for work. A lot of the times I'm required to go sit in an office and work with someone and be there physically with my laptop to do the work. So I know I've talked a lot about Adobe After Effects, but this kind of goes without saying, any kind of 4K video editing that you're gonna do, this thing is just gonna rip right through it. To be honest, I haven't done a ton of like really intense video editing on this machine. So I don't know how it's going to handle, 6K footage or, raw formats per se, but I think for 99% of content creators and video editors out there, this thing is going to just totally rip through anything that you throw at it, basically. I'm happy with it. I'm very happy with it. I don't feel like I'm making compromises. Now, like I said, in my off time, I like to do a little bit of gaming, and I've got no complaints from this device. It plays every game that I want to play on medium or high settings. I can play it back at high resolution, all those things, right? And again, I'm not one of those guys that is going to test the frame rates and how high of quality you can get in a certain AAA title or whatever. So if you're looking for that, there's plenty of other videos on YouTube that will tell you what frame rates you can achieve at certain settings on this computer. But I'm not that guy, right? Now, with that said, I of course do appreciate stunning visuals when it makes sense, right? I'll up the settings or I'll max out the settings when it makes sense. And honestly, I'm shocked at how far I can push this thing before it starts to bog down or before it starts to thermal throttle itself and things like that. So while we're talking about visuals, let's talk about this OLED display. Seriously, the most beautiful screen I have ever used. This beats out my MacBook any day of the week, which is really saying something because Apple really makes nice displays, but this beats it. The contrast is just so good. It's fantastic. The colors are vibrant. Something else that is better than my MacBook is the speakers, surprisingly. I feel like speakers on Windows laptops are normally garbage. They're usually so bad, it's embarrassing. These are unbelievably good. Yet another thing that beats out the MacBook is the keyboard. The keyboard is so good on this device. Now, the only thing that I'm not absolutely in love with on this device is the trackpad. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still a really good trackpad, just comparatively to MacBook Pro trackpad. Apple just does it right. I mean, it is pure perfection, quite frankly. But I will say that this is a close second. This is the best trackpad I've ever used on a Windows device. It's pretty good. I really can't say enough good things about this laptop. Asus really knocked it out of the park with this one. I've been really impressed. With that said, there is always areas that can improve, and the G14 is no different. So let's talk about some of the things that I don't love or some things that I've noticed. First and foremost, battery life. Battery life is not fantastic on this device. I've noticed that playing AAA titles like medium to high settings, I may be able to get like 2.5 hours of battery life, which is not like terrible by any means, but it could be better for sure. When I'm doing my creative work, so I'm doing motion graphics animation or video editing, kind of depends on the task that I'm doing, but I'm really only able to eke out like 4 to 6 hours, which again is not terrible, especially when you compare it to laptops like 5 years ago. But when you're comparing it to my M3 MacBook Pro, I'm able to edit and animate all freaking day. Like for real, I'm able to have a full day of work on a battery, on one charge. Secondly, this thing runs insanely hot. Like, it is ridiculously hot. I could cook an egg on this thing, and I'm pretty sure that if I left this thing on my lap while it was under heavy load, I think it would genuinely burn my thighs. I think I would end up with third-degree burns because of how insanely hot this device gets. And also the fan noise kind of gets to be a little bit too much as well. My benchmark, I'm sorry, it's Apple right now, right? The M3 MacBook Pro just runs ridiculously quiet and really cool. It does not get hot. I've like never heard the fan spin up on that thing, I swear. So just generally speaking, I'd love to see Windows devices deal with the heat better and also figure out how to make these things more quiet. Again, not a huge deal, certainly not a deal breaker, but just something to kind of take note of. Lastly, this has nothing to do with Asus. I just can't stand Windows, if I'm being totally honest. User interface, totally fine. It's not the best, but I'm fine with it. The issue is the updates and the constant driver updates and just weird quirky things that happen quite frequently. It's probably not even really relevant to say in this video because it really has nothing to do with Asus. It's just Windows. So is this the best laptop that I've ever owned? Well, if you forced me to pick between Mac and Windows, I think I'm going to pick this device. Only because of the gaming side of it, right? My MacBook cannot game. I cannot play games on that device, right? There's a couple titles I can play, but ultimately, if I want to game and do creative work and, do my day-to-day, I'm picking this computer hands down. I would say with those things in mind, I would say that this is for sure the best laptop that I've ever used, truly. But as long as I can have both a Mac and a PC, I'm gonna have both. So take that for what you will. Overall, really, really happy with this device. Comment below, tell me, do you think that this is a good buy? Do you own one of these? What do you think? If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe, please comment below if you find this video useful. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.